I was a teacher for 40 years. And towards the end of my teaching career, I was teaching an enrichment class for struggling readers. Those students didn't really want to be in my class because reading was hard for them. And every year on the first day, I would always hear these comments along the lines of, why do I have to be in here? It's not going to do any good. I'm dumb in reading. Can I get out of this class? And on and on. And so every year on the first day of school, I would gather them together and thank them for their comments. And I would tell them that I understood that they didn't believe in themselves and believe that they could be a better reader, but that I believed that they could. And I was going to believe for them until they could believe for themselves. And that's exactly how our year went each year. We had a positive atmosphere in the classroom. We celebrated from the smallest wins to the largest wins. We used positive affirmations, positive reinforcements, and negative talk was not allowed. And towards the end of the school year, every year, I would see big improvements with those kids, and their comments would change. And they would turn into such comments as, I didn't think I could read this well, or look at the books I can check out of the library now. And they were always along those lines. One in particular, a student that really gave me a lot of resistance because he was one of those cool kids that didn't want to be in my class, came to me at the very end of the year and he said, I never believed I could, but now I do. Now I tell you that story because there's some irony to it. I believed heart and soul that those children could improve and be better readers. I believed in them. The problem was they had a teacher who didn't believe in herself. I thought my life was happy. I grew up as one of 4 daughters in Southeast Louisiana to a loving middle-class family. I just assumed that the way I was born, having low self-esteem, low self-confidence, fear of being in front of people was just the way I was and the way I was always going to be. And I adapted to that and I was happy. Days turned into years and I became someone's wife and then someone's mother, and continued being someone's teacher. I was on autopilot, just making sure that everybody else was taken care of and they had what they needed. And I was happy that way. Our married life was a good one. We had our hardships like many couples do. I had Lyme disease and had to live with the after effects for a few years. I had major knee issues. I was extremely overweight, over 125 pounds heavier than I am now. My husband also had health issues. And because of that, we had mounting medical bills that almost drove us to the brink of bankruptcy. But all of those hardships put together could not compare to one that I faced in 2009. It was August of that year, it was the second day of the school year. I left for work that morning, a happily married woman of 30 years, to return home just a few hours later to find myself a widow. Life as I knew it ceased to exist. My whole world shattered right in front of me. That first week was extremely difficult. To make it even more difficult, our daughter had been planning a wedding. She was getting married in 4 months. And now there was this wedding being planned, and I now had to plan a funeral for my husband and getting ready to bury the father of my children. Our younger daughter was getting ready to leave home for the first time 2 days after his passing to go away to college. They wanted to change their plans, but I insisted that they keep them. But in doing so, I now had empty nest, and I had never even lived by myself before, all alone. The days were horrible and dark and depressing, and I shed so many tears. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what my role in life was supposed to be. And I prayed to God to please send me some sense of direction and some sense of purpose. And my days were dark for a very long time. And then suddenly, well, not suddenly, or finally, I started to see color in my world again. And I started to smile and I started to laugh. And I knew that things were going to be okay for me. It's been said that you never know how strong you are until that's the only way that's left to be. And I believe that to be true. So fast forward about 8 years, and I'm facing my fifth knee surgery. And I'm realizing that I'm burnt out on teaching and it's time for me to retire. So I'm looking forward to this retirement because it means no alarm clock in the morning, not having to get up and do hair and makeup at 5:30 and hit the door running on my commute. But after I healed from that knee surgery, I started thinking I should have been careful about what I wished for because that wasn't the kind of life I wanted, just not really doing anything. And in my heart, I kept feeling this message telling me, your job is not over. You still have a story to tell. So I started to write my next book, and it was a book for widows. It was the first time I had written a nonfiction book. They had all been fiction before. And the title of it was called Life After Loss for Widows, Lifting the Veil of Grief. And it was during this time of writing this book that I started to learn about life coaching. Being in the education field for all those years, I just didn't even know that life coaching was a thing. So I looked into it and I realized how much it would mesh with my experience as a teacher as well as my writing. So I went on to get my life coaching certification. It was during that time that the doors were unlocked to a world that was unknown to me. I found out that I didn't have to have this fixed mindset, that I could change my thoughts and I could change my actions and I could have a different outcome. Now, wait, what? I was over 50 years old and I'm just really figuring all this out. I knew that if I wanted to be a coach, I had to be my first coaching client because there was a lot to work on. So I went to work and I worked hard on limiting beliefs, mindset, forgiveness, setting boundaries, and so much more. I was starting to see the world through new lenses. It wasn't easy and it wasn't overnight, but it was so well worth it. And during this time, I had some time for self-reflection, and I started to think about all those dreams I had put on the back burner of life so many years before. So I dusted them off and thought about them, and some of them no longer served my purpose, so I just released them. But there was one in particular that seemed to latch on to me as if to say, you found me again, I'm not letting you go this time. And that dream was public speaking. Me, the person who was terrified to speak in front of people, the person who had such low self-esteem and low self-confidence. But I would always imagine back then being an inspirational speaker, speaking from my heart and inspiring people to do something. I didn't know what at the time, but it's what I wanted to do. But as soon as I would think of that, my inner critic would bounce and pounce on me and say, what do you have to talk about that's worth anything? And how could you have anything inspirational that anybody would want to hear? And so I would believe her and push it to the back. But this time, because of my transformation, instead of saying, no way, I said, why not? And I went for it. I opened my business, I registered my business 6 weeks before my 60th birthday. It was my birthday gift to myself. And I named my business Live Your Purpose. I took all of life's hardships and I turned them into life's lessons. I put a quote in my office that said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. When I took those hardships and turned them into life's lessons, I entered my cave. I burst that huge bubble that was my comfort zone. And when I did that, I found my own treasures. They were all the opportunities that were waiting for me right outside of my comfort zone. And had I not taken those steps, I would have never known what was waiting for me. I learned that there's no time like the present to go after your dreams and your goals. And I believe wholeheartedly that we all have gifts that we need to share with the world. Our gifts come in all different sizes, in different areas, for different people, and in different languages, but we must share our gifts. My husband's death taught me that in the grand scheme of things, life is very short. We all have an expiration date, but we don't know when that date will be. If we allow our gifts and our dreams to expire with us unused, we're not only doing ourselves a disservice, we're doing a disservice to everyone who would have benefited by us sharing those gifts. Today, I speak to people about messages of resilience and transformation. And I do it through a logical approach that I call the BELL approach. BELL is also my name, but it's also an acronym, and it stands for Believe, Evolve, Love Yourself, and Live Your Purpose. I recently wrote a book that became an international bestseller called Stuck to Unstoppable, Living Life with Power, Passion, and Purpose. And in this book, I reference the BELL approach. At the end of every chapter, there's call to action steps to help you dive deeper into the chapters. And there's a link for a downloadable workbook that will help you with your transformation. I also teach coaching programs on the BELL approach, as well as other coaching programs. I speak to school leaders and staff, as well as other businesses, about their own personal growth blueprint, which I use the BELL approach, to have them become the best version of themselves, not only in their personal life, but in their professional life, either as being an employer or an employee. I fully believe when you are happier, when you feel more confident, when you are self-motivated and you are grateful, then you are better able to handle all those hard curveballs that life may throw at you. I invite you to visit my website at www.peggymbell.com. There you'll see all of the books that I've written. You'll see the topics that I speak on and more. These days, I'm happy and proud to say that I am Peggy Bell, resilience coach, international best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and retired educator. And I will close with the words I will borrow from a former reluctant reader who said, "I never believed I could, but now I do." Thank you.